What do you think this year's hit slutty Halloween costume is? I know the answer, but I want to know your thoughts and opinions.
It's got to be like a Pink Pony Club sort of situation, right?
Ooh, God, that's a great answer, but no. What's your next?
What do you think it's going to be?
No, fire up what's on deck. Mine's going to blow whatever you say out of the water. Yeah.
I have no idea.
Sexy dead presidents. And other historical figures, because Benjamin Franklin is being included.
I was thinking, like, there's no way this is worth the wait, and boy, I was wrong. That was just...
I know.
It was
worth every
seasoned
second.
and reduced so well.
Yeah. No, I know a bunch of
All
people that are going as sexy George Washington, sexy Lincoln. And it's literally, like, the costume isn't even all that sexy. It is mostly just that president, but with, like, short shorts and fishnets. And I'm kind of really into the idea.
Welcome, vamps, tramps, and lamps, to We Have That Podcast at Home, the only podcast playing at a dead man's party. Who could ask for more? I've been struck by lightning walking down the street. Gamage.
I do know that reference, actually.
Oh my God, you do? You know Oingo Boingo?
Yes, I love Oingo Boingo.
Oh, that's awesome to hear.
You being sarcastic?
No, I'm dead serious. That's great. That is also a very apt reference for this Halloween-y episode-y.
Yes, and also I'm now way off track, and I don't remember what you said, and I was trying to come up with something that was on brand for my introduction.
And I'm on brand, Rachel. Each week we do shit.
Each week Rachel fucks up the intro. Oh, fuck me. Can we restart? I literally have no fucking clue what's going on.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to say my thing, and then you're just going to continue on, and I'm able to cut it using this fancy technology program on my computer.
Why do you never help me?
Help? You just say, hey everybody, Rachel here.
Yeah, I'm still not used to the fucking new version, so I got really derailed when I realized I knew who the fuck Oingo Boingo was. Okay, hold on. Give me a second here.
Blah, blah, blah. Have the podcast at home. Blah, blah, blah. I'm on brand Gamage.
And I'm on brand Rachel, and I'm trying to come up with something fucking Halloween themed is the problem. Each week we play Russian roulette with our success and spin a wheel to find out the genre of next week's podcast. This week we are attempting the fine art of Spoopenheim. That's the best I have for you.
This is so good. I'm keeping fucking all of this in.
I know. Oh, shoot me now. God smite me down.
Well, hey folks.
Hi guys. Welcome to Halloween.
Yeah, we're doing our Halloween episode.
This is Halloween. Everybody's
for Halloween. For Halloween, I've decided to talk about the Supernatural spin-off anime and the Winchester show. And so I'm kidding, haha. But Halloween is about candy and spookiness.
Everybody's butthole just clenched so hard and then unclenched in an equally aggressive manner.
Pretty much, yeah.
You could hear them puckering against the seats as you said
All
that.
10 people in China listening.
Yep.
No, for this week, we decided to do more Halloween stuff, I think in the form of IRL scary stories. Now, I said IRL scary stories, so I'm interested to see how Rachel interpreted that. Like, I had something kind of in mind, but
these the same. Because I went with, like, historical kind of, I guess maybe not. No, I guess they're scary stories. I went with, like, historical creepy events.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if mine are considered creepy or just terrifying, and now I'm having trouble sleeping. Some of them are, at least.
There we go.
I want you to regale me with some IRL spooky stories. I want to go to bed tonight thinking, wow, the world is a much bigger place than I had originally anticipated.
I don't know if you'll go to bed thinking it's a much bigger place, but you'll go to bed thinking it's an equally, if not more shitty place than when you woke up this morning. Because I went with like not so much ghosty things, but just terrible people are being put into terrible situations.
Like when I was writing this one up, I was thinking this is really more like a true crime documentary type episode with
that's kind of what I was thinking too.
I've definitely shot with historically scary things that have happened to people that are real.
Yes.
There's nothing supernatural in here, depending on who you ask.
All right. I'm starting off with, have you heard of the Stanford prison experiment?
Dude, yes, and I love this. Please pretend I've never heard of this before.
Fantastic. All right, so the Stanford prison experiment was put together in the 70s, and it was funded by the, shockingly, U.S. U.S. Office of Naval Research, which is apparently awful. Basically, the goal of the experiment was to see the psychological effects of becoming a prisoner or a prison guard and study the roles that power, rules, symbols, and group identity play during that process. Originally, it was intended to be 1 to 2 weeks of an experiment, and it ended up only being 6 days because it devolved that fucking quickly.
Yep.
So in August of 1971, they started offering college students about $15 a day for, every day that they participate, which was 6. What's 6 times 15? It's not enough for what happened to these people. Whatever that number 90, is not enough for what happened to these people. So it was males were allowed to apply. There were 75 men that applied. 24 were selected. The populace was predominantly white middle class and appeared to be mentally stable and healthy. They intentionally excluded people with criminal records, any psychological impairments, and any medical issues. In 2008, somebody named Thomas Carnahan argued that people who would apply to be in a prison experiment were already more likely to be potentially aggressive, quote-unquote right-wing, have social dominance issues, lack empathy, and altruism, which, I kind of get what he's saying, but I don't necessarily think all of that's true.
I kind of disagree. I think that in America, the kind of people who sign up to do these fucking experiments or drug testing are people who aren't very well off. Maybe not necessarily power hungry people, but definitely people like, I need to get some fucking grocery money right now.
I'm looking for a cash grab. Yeah, I feel like I could get the concept of what he's saying of somebody who is interested in a prison experiment could have these, but I think to say that
I agree with that.
All of them are more likely to fit this bill just kind of doesn't make sense. Because I agree with you that I think it's sort of missing the point of the main populace that tends to apply to these, which is usually people who need some fucking groceries.
Yeah, black and white, it ain't.
So basically, the setup of the experiment is they built a bunch of these small cells that were built to hold 3 prisoners. And then there was a small corridor outside of the prison cells that represented the prison yard. There's a closet for solitary confinement. And then there was a big room across from the cells and the prison yard, quote unquote. That was for the guards and the warden. The head researcher, oh my God, I didn't write his name here because I'm dumb. It starts with a Z. I'll say it later. The head researcher took the role of superintendent.
Philip Zimbardo.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Yeah. Zimbardo took the role of superintendent and his assistant researcher took the role of warden. They held an orientation for all of the guards. And there's a lot of back and forth about that part where Zimbardo says that he explicitly told them not to hurt or provide corporal punishment to the prisoners. But then there's also, because they recorded this entire event, and there's recordings of him encouraging them to physically harm the prisoners. So obviously he's kind of talking out of his ass for some of that.
He's even gone on record, though, of saying that, when he goes back and looks at the videos, he sees that he's actually kind of evil, too. He comes in, he says that his body language is kind of very warden-like, And he's like, he regrets the whole thing, but he definitely talks about how he was kind of put under the social pressure as well.
Yeah, which that's
experiment.
ended up being, and I'll get there later, but that ended up being why he ended the experiment of, he had colleagues come to him telling him that he had changed as a person since the start of the experiment 6 days ago.
It's
which
very
is kind of
interesting.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they held orientation for the guards. And during the orientation, they gave them rules for their jobs, telling them not to hurt anybody, not to withhold food and drinks. Their main job was to maintain law and order. They requested that they refer to prisoners by number, not name. They were provided with wooden batons, a sort of pseudo uniform, and mirrored sunglasses to reduce eye contact and increase anonymity, which I thought was kind of interesting. Participants assigned as prisoners were mock arrested at their homes or in designated areas, which is kind of interesting because just that alone was already a breach in the ethics contract that they signed before they started this experiment. So we're not off to a great start.
No.
They were mock arrested, and they actually fully went through the Palo Alto police booking system where they did the photographing, the fingerprinting, the whole process. Then they were driven over.
I mean, that's an important process because it like dehumanizes you.
Yeah. And then they were driven over to the faux prison facility, and each of them were individually strip searched and given uniforms, which consisted of like an uncomfortable, poorly fitting smock, no underwear, and stocking caps. And when I read this, I was like, what is a stocking cap? Well, I was thinking those little slouch beanies that don't really look like they fit people's heads. Kind of like what dwarves wear in Snow White, if that makes sense at all.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if that's actually right. And then I looked up pictures. It's literally like a woman's stocking. Like they just gave them like a sleeve of a stocking. It's just a little
For
net.
what?
I don't fucking know what the purpose was.
Maybe it's a 1970s thing that we just don't understand anymore.
Who the fuck knows? Or somebody thought what I thought when they saw stocking caps and just assumed that was what they were supposed to buy and just cut up a bunch of women's stockings.
These aren't the Snow White dwarf things.
My first thought was that or actual women's stockings. And I was like, no, it has to be the slouch hats. That, what? What does that mean?
Fact checker says they are to sleep in. They're hats. No idea what you search, but they are definitely hats. Fact checker's here, by the way. She's not.
No. I'm saying I saw pictures of them wearing what looked like just actual stockings. I didn't look up stocking caps. I looked up pictures of the experiment, and maybe it was just a weird photo, but it looked like they were wearing fucking.
Hey, stockings. I'm just reading what fact checker's saying.
And I'm clarifying
like
what I'm
some
saying.
kind of morbid parrot.
Anyway, whether they be women's stocking is neither here nor there. All of it sucks. So that's day one, is they get arrested, booked, all that good stuff, sent off to their sleeping quarters. Day two, the prisoners have begun rebelling. I didn't get like a distinct layout of what happened on day two. It kind of sounds like they were woken up at 2:30 in the morning and told to go eat in the yard. And they were like, no, fuck you. So they refused. The prisoners refused and then ripped off their number tags on their uniforms and started a riot, basically. And in response, the guards sprayed them with fire extinguishers, which, I don't know if you know this, you can burn people with fire extinguishers.
Yeah,
so that was a pretty bold fucking response.
Kind of toxic.
Yeah, and we're on day two. So then the guards removed all the prisoners, so they got the prisoners under control, and then they removed all the prisoners' clothes, mattresses, and assigned the main instigators of the riot to a special detention unit, which was not described in the article that I read. So we move on to day three. The guards begin a psychological warfare of separating quote-unquote good prisoners and taking them down to the other side of the block of cells where they would give them back their clothes, they were given mattresses, they were given food, and the rest of everybody else was denied clothing, beds, and food. After 12 hours, the quote-unquote good prisoners would be sent back to the shitty half of the prison. The guards had started abusing the prisoners, After 12 hours, they were sent back to the shitty half. And I'm trying to remember where the fuck I was. The guards started abusing the prisoners by forcing them to do push-ups, restricting bathroom access, so they were forced to use a bucket in the cell. So the first prisoner, Douglas Corpy, dropped out after 36 hours and later stated that he regrets not suing them for false imprisonment, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Day 4, the guards are treating the good versus rebellious prisoners differently. It's resulting in major division. The rioters believe that the others are snitches. The snitches believe that the others are rebellious. Blah, 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 blah. Other prisoners are kind of pissed off at the rebellious prisoners because they're a threat to the status quo and they're costing them their clothes, beds, and bathroom privileges. Prisoner 819 begins showing symptoms of distress and is crying in his cell. They bring a priest to talk to him, which I thought was weird. He asked for a doctor instead. I don't think they gave him one.
No, they for sure did not.
Yeah. The head researcher, Zimbardo, just let him leave. And then the guards harangued the remaining prisoners by continuing to tell them that 819 did a bad thing by leaving. Day 5 is family day. It's visitation day. They made the visitors wait obscenely long amounts of time to see their loved ones. Only 2 people at a time could visit each prisoner. Parents were immediately concerned with the well-being of their children and whether they were eating enough. Some parents left planning to contact lawyers to get their children released earlier. Colleagues began talking to Zimbardo and questioning the legitimacy of the experiment and raising concerns about the distressing nature in which guards were treating prisoners. And this is also the point where one of his colleagues said that he had changed since the start of the experiment and clearly was a different person than he was before it began.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, what it was is he was videoing all of this, so there's like video footage of it.
Yeah.
And he was showing this footage to like one of his colleagues, and he's like, "Look at how interesting this is. Like, see the body language here, and see how they're acting." And their colleague was like, "Look at how you're acting."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh shit."
Well, and one of his colleagues came to view the experiment, and the guards were forcing the prisoners to put bags over their heads while they're just like naked and in mattressless rooms with a poop bucket in the corner. Real good stuff.
Yep.
Day 6, the study ended amid concerns from parents and colleagues. Zimbardo debriefed with the prisoners and guards and asked them about their experiences. I wish I had found more of that information because I'm sure it's really fucking interesting and I'll probably try to look it up more later. But that is...
There's several documentaries on this stuff.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a whole film that was made in Germany about... I don't think it's a documentary. I think it's like a dramatic film about it, but yeah.
It is a major plot point to the third season of Veronica Mars.
Oh, interesting.
I don't want to spoil it. I first heard about this through the Science of Evil, which is a really good documentary on like exploring what morality is and includes the Stanford experiment.
Yeah, that's...
It had a bunch of other things too, but very interesting shit.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge reference point for morality.
I think overall what it does is it kind of shows that absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is one of my favorite like quotes.
Yeah.
I forget who said it.
Which I think is good and fair and true, and there's probably a very rare exception to that rule.
Have you heard of Anatoly Bugorsky and his accident involving a particle accelerator?
No, I have not.
This is a neat one. So, July 13th, 1978, Anatoly Bugorsky was checking on a malfunctioning piece of equipment when the safety mechanisms failed on a particle accelerator, also known as an atom smasher. He was leaned over the equipment and stuck his head into the path of a very powerful proton beam, and it fucking zapped right through his head.
Did it explode his head?
No. Bugorsky reported that
they should have called it an Anatoly smasher.
That's fucked up. I'm going to tell him. Bugorsky reported that he felt no pain but saw a flash brighter than 1,000 suns.
Was he blind?
The beam...
After?
I'm about to tell you everything.
Oh, I'm sorry, I know. Go.
The beam passed through the back of his head, and he understood what had just happened, but continued to work on the equipment and initially didn't report what had happened.
Okay.
Which is like a typical like work day. Like,
Yeah,
I cut
like,
myself,
it's
but
fine.
I'll just I'll grit and bear through it.
I'm not dead, so it must be all right.
Yeah, exactly. Until the left half of his face swelled beyond recognition. His skin started to peel, revealing the path the proton beam had burned through parts of his face, bone, and brain tissue underneath.
Whoa.
He received a local dose of 2,000 to 3,000 sieverts. The lethal dose of sieverts, by the way, is debated, but the average person would say between 5 and 8.
What the fuck?
Single.
Oh my god.
He was immediately taken to a clinic where doctors could observe his expected demise.
You know, it's fucked when it's not for help. It's so doctors can watch you die.
We need to see this.
You're an experiment now. Don't worry about it.
Bugorsky completely lost hearing in his left ear, and the left half of his face was paralyzed due to the destruction of nerves. He developed seizures, but otherwise recovered completely.
Wow.
Went on to complete his PhD and continue working as a particle physicist. He's 82 right now. He's still alive.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, that's probably the more positive story
How
I've got.
many sieverts did he receive?
2,000 to 3,000. It's hard to say.
Holy crap.
But it was like a miraculous you're not dead kind of situation.
Yeah.
A particle accelerator, which can potentially create a black hole, fucking went through his head.
Do you think he was upset that he didn't get superpowers?
I mean, yes, because he actually like applied for disability and was denied because he gets seizures all the time now.
Wait, and he was denied?
He was denied disability.
That sucks dick. American healthcare.
Because he's like, I get seizures and it's hard to do things. Oh, this is Russia, to be fair.
Oh. Russian healthcare. It's about the same.
It's about the same. A lot of similarities between these two countries.
Yeah, no, I just like, if that happened to me, I would be pissed off that I didn't get superpowers, because one time a spider bit me in the neck, and I was like, all right, universe, either I'm dead tomorrow or you give me Spider-Man powers. There's no in between. I woke up and I was fine. It was a very disappointing morning.
On both ends?
No, mostly on one end, but the other end, I was trying to give them an ultimatum. Holy fuck. He just got freaking...
Oh, did Fact Checker post the pictures? Yeah.
Yeah, just bullet wounded with a particle through his fucking head. That's crazy.
Homie fucking lived, though.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's actually funny because I brought this up like in the car when I was talking to Brittany about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this one on the guy who got killed in the particle accelerator. And she remembered. She was like, he lived. And I was like, no fucking way.
God damn. Yeah, no, good for him, I guess. Have you heard of, and I'm sure you have because it is pretty well known, the Roanoke colony?
That sounds familiar. I may recognize the case, but the name is like just lost on me.
Oh, I'm actually surprised you didn't know it straight out of the gate. Okay, so the Roanoke colony was it was like the first attempt to settle or make our first English settlement in North America. It was founded in 1585, which I also think is kind of bullshit because then they abandoned it for like 2 years and refounded it in 1587. But whatever. So in 1587, they legitimately established the colony. But then in 1587, John White, the governor of the colony, headed back to England to gather supplies. And he left behind his wife, daughter, granddaughter, and a bunch of, I think it was 100+ colonists. When he arrived to England, there was a major naval war going on between England and Spain, and all ships were being enlisted to help fight the Spanish Armada. So he was unable to return until 1590, even though England was supposed to be sending yearly refreshes on, supplies and food and things. When they landed, on the beach, there were fresh human tracks, but nobody came to greet them or anything. At the beach, there was a carving of CRO on a tree. Around the colonial settlement, they had built palisades, which are those fences with the curvy top that sometimes have points. Yeah. And Croatoan was carved into one of the poles making up the palisade. Everything in the town, like the little settlement town, was completely dismantled. Any supplies that could be carried were completely gone. And there were no human remains or graves left behind. So at this point, it was all right, this guy thought that they maybe went to the island of Croatoan because there was one near the island of Roanoke. And there were also an indigenous tribe that lived there named Croatoan. They have never actually been found or discovered, and nobody's actually figured out what the hell happened to these 100 people. It's never been recorded anywhere. Their bodies have never been found. So the theories include that they tried to sail back to England when they didn't receive their resupply and died. They were captured by the Spanish, or the third one is my favorite, and it kind of makes sense if they did go to
aliens,
the Croatoan island. No, that they assimilated into the indigenous tribes that were in the area, because there was an indigenous tribe called Croatoan, I think, on the Croatoan island, and then there was one in Chesapeake Bay called Chesapeake or something like that. I did not write it down, so I don't know.
We're white, we don't know the pronunciation, sorry.
That too. But so there's like some theories that happened, because I guess at the time anybody who'd been captured or enslaved by the indigenous people predominantly never wanted to return to life as a European, even if they were being enslaved, which is really interesting. And then there's a lot of reports of white blonde Native Americans, which could be, there was some back and forth on whether that was albinism in Native peoples, but I thought that was kind of an interesting theory that they just sort of meshed into this society, and it sort of makes sense. Since
it makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, there's no...
That's the closest thing to the real Thanksgiving story that we're ever going to get.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the real one isn't quite that...
yeah.
Like that.
Well, and neat random fact that I did not know about this story is the original founder of the colony was reluctant to report that they died or really figure out if they had died, because if they couldn't provide any evidence of their death, they were still allowed to hold claim over the land that they had quote unquote colonized. But if the settlers had all died, he would have lost his claim of, I think it was like the Carolinas or Virginia or something like that. I almost said vinegar. The fuck? You ever been to that state, Vinegar?
Yeah, I've heard this story before. I didn't know it was the Roanoke colony story.
Yeah,
there was also an episode of Supernatural.
Yeah, I was about to say it's pretty popular in pop culture. There's plays. There's a book by Stephen King. There's an episode of Supernatural. There's an entire season of American Horror Story that revolves around this concept, and there's even a Batman comic.
I've tried a billion times to get into American Horror Story. I just don't like it.
I have watched some of it, and I gave up because it was just, it got old.
Yeah.
I think you'd like the witch season. I never liked the first season. I thought it sucked.
I tried to watch the first season, and I got halfway through it, and I'm like, this kind of sucks.
I hated the first season.
I kind of don't like this. And then I watched this part of the second season because I heard, they're all like different. And the second season, I also didn't like. And then I stopped and I got back around the Lady Gaga one because I'm like, I want to see what Lady Gaga does. And that I didn't like also. I don't like the show.
Yeah, that's fair.
I tried.
Yeah, you gave it a good college effort.
Next spooky story is I'm going to discuss the Demon Core, the famous Demon Core.
I'm excited.
Anyone
for this
who's
one.
ever been on more than 2 websites on the internet knows the Demon Core, but
I've only been on 1.5.
I guess not Rachel. This one's one of my favorites. I keep hearing it all the time, but the Demon Core was the name given to a sphere of plutonium that was manufactured by the Manhattan Project during World War II. It was developed and planned to be used as the 3rd nuclear weapon to be dropped on Japan, but Japan surrendered and the US figured there's no more need for nuclear weapons at the moment. The core was then used for testing and resulted in 2 fatal accidents. The core itself, and fact checkers posted a picture, the core itself was a solid 14-pound sphere about 3.5 inches in diameter. It's made up of 3 parts of plutonium gallium and 2 hemispheres and an anti-jet ring. The ring is designed to keep neutron flux from jetting out of the joint surfaces between the hemispheres. The first incident was on August 21st, 1945. Harry Daghlian was working experiments alone, which is never a good idea. the core was placed within a stack of neutron-reflective tungsten carbide bricks. The plutonium would spontaneously decay and release neutrons, and the neutrons hit other plutonium atoms and also decay, and so on and so on. And that's what is a chain reaction. That's what causes nuclear weapons to do the thing. The demon core is too small for the chain reactions to self-perpetuate unless you reflected neutron back into the core by, say, stacking tungsten carbide bricks around it. So that was the first experiment. So my guy Harry, while strategically placing the bricks around the core to bring it to as close as critical as possible to measure the data or some shit, accidentally dropped a brick on the fucking core.
Oh my God.
There was a flash of blue light as the core reached supercriticality. Harry immediately grabbed the brick off the altar of death he made, but he was already hella radioactive. He died 25 days later from radiation poisoning.
Did not become the Hulk.
No, he did not.
Rough stuff.
Now, you'd think that the first incident is enough to, like, go bananas on safety regulations, right?
No.
Like, up the safety protocols here?
Why would we do that?
So they decided bricks were a recipe for disaster. So they traded. So they traded up for 2 beryllium hemispheres to be used as neutron reflectors, which is what you see in the picture that fact checker posted. The experiment here is to place the core inside and slowly lower the top beryllium hemisphere so that the neutrons are being reflected, but refrain from completely closing the 2 halves together, which would be bad, bad, bad.
Oh my God. Don't let the 2 halves touch. Like, I feel like we traded a brick for a fucking rat trap.
Now, hold on. The standard protocol here was discussed and decided in the form of using shims between the 2 halves to prevent them from ever touching. It's foolproof.
Of course.
As you can see, the sphere, there's 2 shims that like go in between it so they never touch. Perfect, foolproof. Fast forward to May 21st, 1946. That's right, not even a year later. And we get incident numero 2. Louis Slotin was conducting another experiment with 7 other people in the room, including a photographer, security guard, and one Alvin C. Graves. It's reported that Slotin was leaving Los Alamos and was showing the technique to Alvin C. Graves, who would be doing his own testing. So this is work training. This is a shadowing shift.
Oh my God.
To put it into perspective.
This is my second day on the job. Welcome to my plutonium ball.
Slotin was apparently the resident bad boy, opting out of safety shims and instead have the 2 hemispheres touch full time except for a tiny sliver created by propping the 2 pieces open using a flat tip screwdriver.
What in the fuck?
He'd twist the screwdriver to increase or decrease the gap for data collection and did so in his cowboy boots and blue jeans because he's a bad boy.
Holy Christ.
Other scientists went on to say he'd be dead in a year if he kept doing this, and, well, yeah.
He was dead in a year. Oh my Jesus. Is that what that first picture is? Is him fucking using a screwdriver to open it?
That's a recreation of it, yeah. So this dude is doing work training for the new guy, and his hand slips, and the hemispheres kiss. There is a flash of light and heat.
Kiss.
Slotin quickly grabbed it and threw the top shell off to the floor, and Slotin is reported saying, well, that does it.
Yep. There we go.
His body position was thankfully shielding everyone else in the room, and while they had a high dose of radiation, it wasn't fatal. Slotin fucking died, though, 9 days after the incident.
Jesus.
Alvin got trained by, like, the worst resident during a holiday shift who proceeded to throw shit around and say, none of this fucking matters, without explaining the procedure. Which is fine when I do it, but my fucking attitude isn't radioactive and costs lives.
Yeah, no, you're not fucking disregarding the safety of having a fucking plutonium. I don't need, like... My point that I'm trying to say is what you are training people to haphazardly do is not life or death.
I mean, yeah, like this is in the 40s, to be fair. But I feel like the first incident was like, oh, oops, it was kind of a mistake. But the second one was like, you're fucking playing
fucking kidding me
with forces. You don't... respect, and it's going to eat you alive. And so it did.
Good Lord.
With a screwdriver.
He died the way he lived. Mildly stupid.
It's crazy because he's a physicist. He knows this shit. Mm-hmm. But he's like, I'm gonna fuck around with a screwdriver. This thing was supposed to destroy Japan, but But
it's fine. I feel like that's that whole, when you become exposed to something dangerous so often, you lose your regard for how fucking dangerous that thing actually is.
Yeah, I think so. And like why people are just like fucking pushing their pet tigers around like ha ha ha.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's why we have house cats. We've lost our regard for how dangerous they actually are.
If house cats wanted to kill you, they would. Like if they were smart, they could like they can leap high, they can lunge for your throat, tear out your jugular before you even understood
claws.
what happened.
Yeah. No, I could get taken down. Easy. The Donner Party, not to be confused with the dinner party. Thanks, autocorrect, for the entire time that I made these notes. Literally every time I typed Donner Party, it was like, dinner party? Dinner? Like, people died, autocorrect. Calm down.
I'm familiar with this, but I don't recall the details. Like, I know I've seen the Donner Party case before, but ignore me, please. I mean, it's good that I'm going into this with sort of fresh eyes.
Yeah, we gonna get into it. The Donner Party departed from Independence, Missouri, and
feel free
headed
to
out
talk
on
fast,
the old Oregon Trail. I don't know if you've ever heard of the old Oregon Trail.
You have less than 9 minutes.
I'm just fucking with you. Okay. They departed. So, all right, this is kind of relevant information. I wrote a lot of things down because I got deep into the fucking Donner Party while doing this.
Oh, it's fine. Let it loose.
They departed from Independence, Missouri in the spring of 1846, which was...
Oh, hey, I used to live there.
Did you really?
Independence, Missouri, yeah.
Did you feel independent?
No, I felt like it sucked.
Oh, well, they did too. They left. So they departed in spring of 1846. And when they departed, they had 9 wagons and 32 members. And they actually consisted of 2 families named Donner and Reed that were made up of people from a year-old baby to a 60-year-old man. Within about a week, they met up with a group of 50 other wagons. Their trip was actually going relatively well for a while. Until a dude named Lansford Hastings, who's like an adventurer of the time, made a new trail, and he started sending letters out to migrants on the trail to advertise his new route that supposedly would get them to California and Oregon faster. And the new route was called Hastings Cutoff. He wrote that the other trails they would use have issues with Mexican authorities in California, and he could guide newcomers through his brand new trail, and he would meet them at Black Forks/Bridgers Fort and guide them through this process. On July 12th, the Reeds and the Donners received one of these new trail letters. The Oregon Trail normally takes 4 to 6 months, and they started in spring of 1846. Just a thing to note. So the new Hastings Cutoff Trail that they ended up taking goes through the Rocky Mountains and the Great Salt Lake Desert in Utah. It was originally quoted as being shorter and easier, and shocker, it fucking was not, and actually added 150 miles and a lot of dead people to their party.
Like, why lie about that, though? Like,
I don't fucking know, because he's a twat.
It's not like you're getting like toll fees from it. It's just I want to make a thing, and I want my name to be on it and it be used.
Yeah,
and don't lie, because it's going to be refuted immediately. What?
Yeah, I don't fucking know. But yeah, so they're pretty well off at this point. Everybody's got food. They're not particularly well-skilled adventurers or travelers, but at this point, like, everybody's got some money. They got some food. They're actually kind of chilling and happy. Your Oregon Trail party has yet to run into a snake and gonorrhea. Like, they're doing fine. Outside of like not being particularly well-versed at communicating with indigenous peoples, they are chilling. So, a journalist named Edwin Bryant arrived at Black Forks/Bridgers Fort a week ahead of the Donner Party and saw that the beginning of this Hastings Trail was kind of bullshit and fucked up. And he was worried that the Donner Party was going to struggle, especially with how many wagons they had and all of the women and children that they were carrying with them. So he left a bunch of letters warning them to absolutely not take this shortcut because it sucked dick. When the Donner Party arrived on July 27th to Black Forks, Hastings had already left to guide a different group through his shitty cutoff. But because Bridger's Fort would fare better as a trading post if more people passed through the area, the owner, Jim Bridgers, lied and said that the trail was devoid of rugged paths, devoid of dangerous Native Americans, and would shorten their journey by about 350 miles. It did not. The party never actually received any of the letters from Edwin Bryant, who later wrote in his diary that he's convinced Jim withheld these letters to sell his lie about the trail. On July 31st, 1846, the party set out on the trail 11 days behind Hastings and his first guide group. They immediately hit shitty-ass fucking rugged terrain to the point where they had to lock their wagon wheels when going uphill so they wouldn't roll back down, which sounds like the cork in the butthole of fucking progress. The trail
You already used that like an episode ago. It's
I
not as,
use
as
it every
creative.
day. It sounds like
need a
the
new
locked
catchphrase.
wagon wheel.
You're
No.
losing the kids. They want something fresh.
It sounds like the dam in the river of progress. So the trail was really hard to follow since it was new, but Hastings was writing directions and leaving letters on trees. On August 6th, one of the parties, they found a letter from him that said that they should take a different path than the path that the first group took, which already seems like a terrible fucking idea. So these guys, Reed, Stanton, and Pike, go ahead to try to find Hastings. Hastings doubled back and did like a really blasé, generally take this new route. And they were like, okay. So Reed came back alone without Stanton and Pike, which is relevant information for later. And he was like, let's go take this new path. So they took the new shitty path. It turned into a couple mile a day progress where they would only go like 1.5 miles, maybe 2 every day, because every able-bodied fucking person had to bushwhack, tree fell, and boulder move to get them to even be able to move. I'm
also looking at the map. It's a fucking snake. It's just like back and forth, back. Like it's
garbage. Yeah, it's not good. When they reached the Rocky Mountains, another family who had set out to find them joined them. That family had left at like the end of the season from the Midwest. So it was kind of marking that the Donner Party was like at the back of the migration now for people going across the Oregon Trail.
That's good.
So at this point, they have like 87 people and 60 to 80 wagons. We're still chilling. People got food. And it's starting to go downhill, though. By August 20th, the party's grumpy. They're kind of pissed off at each other. They're especially pissed off at Reed for telling them to take this shitty fucking path. Food is beginning to run low for poor families. They finally run into Stanton and Pike, the guys who were left behind previously to talk to Hastings. And they look like shit and are about a day away from eating their horses because they're so hungry. And then they run into a note from Hastings that says, hey, you have like 2 hard days travel ahead. Surprise, it's more than that. So they press on into a barren wasteland where many a party member hallucinate about water and wagons. Wagons are abandoned. Dehydrated animals are abandoned. Dehydrated animals start kicking and escaping to go find water. And this 2-day, 40-mile journey turned out to be 6 days and 80 miles. No human lives were lost, but lots of animals be gone. So they're now like a month behind in their journey. People are starting to get pissed off at each other. Reed ends up stabbing a guy and getting banished from the campsite. Everybody's in pretty rough shape to the point where they're starting to pool resources and do trades of like, I'll pay you double if you give me some of your cow now. The animals are struggling and dehydrated and emaciated. People are starting to walk to relieve their animals. We have our first legit loss as an old man who was forced to walk has like swollen, his feet swelled to the point where they split open and they just left him by the side of a stream. Yeah.
Sorry, Mac.
It's just not going to work out anymore. There are some people who are upset about that, but most everybody else was like, we can't waste our food on that guy. And so they left him to die there. We continue losing animals and wagons. Indigenous people are beginning to steal and shoot many of the animals and wagons. We're now down about 100 animals so far and 2 people because another dude died of tuberculosis, but that was unrelated to being on the trail.
Dysentery. It's dysentery. We're talking Oregon Trail. It's dysentery.
There you go. 2 people have died of dysentery. Sometimes it's snake bites, and other times it's drowning. Okay? Another guy dies because some indigenous people attack and kill him. Many party members are now facing dehydration and starvation. Stanton returns from a supply party venture that he had gone on previously with mules and supplies. Everybody's like, yay, maybe we're done with the shittiest part. Fun fact, they were not. They are now faced with the crossing that is now known as Donner Pass. Bum, bum, bum. And I don't know if you know this, but I'm pretty sure if they knew that it was named that, they probably wouldn't have fucking gone on the pass. It's October 20th. Supposedly Donner Pass, which I don't know what it was named before, won't have snow until mid-November. So they press on, thinking it'll be fine. Fun fact, it was not. Snow begins to fall early. The party attempts to descend the mountain, and it very, very quickly gets separated into different cabins amidst a 10 to 15 foot snowstorm. So about 60 people in the party are at Truckee Lake in a couple, I think 3 different cabins up there. And then about 21 people are down the road by a creek in tents. On November 4th, snow begins heavily falling and an 8-day snowstorm begins. At this point, everyone has very little food. More of the animals are dying of starvation and freezing to death. Several small parties ventured ahead to try to see if they, as littler units, could make it through the mountain pass. They could not. They all came back defeated.
I mean, it's literally the first 10 minutes of Red Dead Redemption 2. If you played it, you know exactly what's happening here.
That's what I thought about when I was reading this. Another severe storm hits and all the remaining animals die and are bordering on lost in the snow, so they can't even find them to eat them. The party at Truckee Lake lived in filthy cabins, eating hide strips and repeatedly boiling the bones of animals until they hit a point where they would just dissolve in the water. Children began eating the oxhide rug on the floor of the cabins.
Ugh.
It's getting bad. Some of the party headed out on a makeshift snowshoe journey, leaving behind, I think it was a bunch of kids and 2 or 3 adults. It was not a lot of adults per children. They became, the people left in the cabin became so weak that they were just eating any stray rodents that wandered into the cabin. And other than that, they'd pretty much stay in bed all day. Occasionally, someone would venture to see the Donners who were down the way in shitty tents. I think they were 2 miles away or something like that. When they visited them, one of the times they found that 4 of the 21 people that originally started there were dead. One of them, as he was on his deathbed, confessed to murdering another one of them. At the cabins, they have some makeshift roofs made of oxen hide, and they got so hungry that they started eating the roof, killing each other.
I mean, they already ate the carpet.
Yeah, exactly. So we've moved on to eating the... Oh my God. This would have been funnier if I could remember what it was called. What's the fucking insulation in the walls called?
Isn't it just insulation?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know why I think asbestos was stuck in my head, so I think I got derailed. Yeah, they started eating the fucking insulation in the walls. They're eating the roof, killing each other, stealing each other's shit. People have started to die of malnutrition, so they sent out another snowshoe party of 17 people. Stanton, he falls behind, and his remains were later found in the snow. After 2 more days without food, this is the snowshoe party now. After 2 more days without food, one of them proposed that somebody volunteers to die so that they can feed the rest of them. And a couple other people are like, we should just wait until somebody drops dead. I don't think they ever came to a resolution because eventually 2 people died. So they have 2 people dead. And then some dude goes crazy, strips naked, runs into the snow for a few hours before returning and dying. So that's 3 people. They begin to eat the crazy guy's body. And they had 2 indigenous guides with them who refused to eat people flesh. The next day, they stripped all the dead bodies, packed away the meat. And this is an important thing to note. It was stuck out as an important thing to note in the article. They were very careful not to allow people to eat their relatives. So, if you died, we would make sure that my family ate your body and your family would eat my body. Then it got to the point where they started eating their snowshoes. They later murdered the 2 indigenous guides for more food because they were already going to starve to death anyway.
Also, they're not going to heaven. Fuck them.
They eventually stumbled upon an indigenous tribe camp who helped. They originally ran away from them because they were so fucking terrified. And then when they came back, they supplied them with like food, nuts, and things, and then took them to a farm where they could actually like resupply and revitalize themselves. So it's now February. So it's like a literal fucking year later. In February, they sent out a search party and found 13 people dead at Truckee. They went onward to the Donner cabins where they found 4 very gaunt children and 3 very gaunt adults. Shockingly, after 3 rescue parties, they rescued 48 of the initial, I think, 80 people that were up there. And I'd like to question why it's called the Donner Party when the snowshoe people were predominantly the ones that fell to cannibalism, and I don't know if almost any of them were the last name Donner.
Well, they were clearly using dark humor and doing a pun on dinner party. It's the Donner Party.
Obviously.
Get it? The Donners for dinner.
You know what's fucking wild about this, though? So they go through 3 rescue parties, and the first rescue party got like 20 people out. And the next rescue party got, I don't know, I think it was like 7 or 10 or something. And then the last rescue party gets a couple people. And then there's one dude who just made it like all winter, eating other people as they died.
Donner Party, group of American pioneers named for the expedition's captain, George Donner, who became stranded en route to California in late 1846. That's why it's called it.
No. I know why it's called Donner Party. It's just funny to me that the party that didn't actually have any Donners in it are the ones who committed the cannibalism that got it named Donner Party.
I mean, I think they were originally called the Donner Party, and then...
No.
Yeah.
I know. I read the whole fucking thing. It's just funny to me. It'd be like if I was like, me, you, and Brittany are a band now, and we're called the Beans, and then you stab somebody, and it's like, the Beans are known for stabbing people, and it's like, hey, fuck you. It's just Gamage. That's my last long story.
All right. I got one more.
Okay.
It's a quick one. Check this out. Are you familiar with Mike the Headless Chicken?
No.
So, one morning, September 10th, 1945, farmer Lloyd Olson went out on his farm to get a rooster to serve at dinner and proceeded to behead it, as is tradition. The axe did indeed behead the chicken, but it missed the jugular and most of the brainstem was intact. The brainstem is what holds basic functions of the body, breathing, eating, all that jazz. So the chicken was now able to walk around and attempted to peck at the ground for food. It also attempted to crow, though it was just gurgling sounds from his throat.
Ugh.
So the farmer took this now famous chicken on tour as a sideshow act. He'd feed Mike water and milk through a syringe and tiny grubs and corn. It died March 17, 1947 in a motel room after choking on its own mucus. And that's the story of Mike the Headless Chicken. You see how short that was?
How long did it live?
Like 6 months or so. September 10th, 1945, March 17th, 1947. Oh, almost 2 years.
Just headless for 2 years?
A year and a half. Yeah, man.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Just a little nervous system walking around.
I mean, yeah, like it obviously wasn't having any deep thoughts, but I mean, was it ever? It was a chicken.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was gonna say, and then I was like, well, it probably didn't.
Yeah,
start
it's
off
basic
as having
motor
too many.
skills.
Yeah.
Fact checker picture.
Oh my god.
There's Mike with its head.
Like,
why?
Yeah.
You just keep his head in a wallet.
It almost looks like you just like cut off his face.
Yeah.
Just a faceless chicken.
It holds the record for being the longest living animal without a head, obviously.
That's fucking crazy.
I don't think there's a lot of contenders for that record.
Could you imagine trying to behead something and fucking it up and then being like, well, let's just see what happens?
Yeah, there's some
Like, what the
grim
fuck?
shit.
He just saw it wandering around and wasn't like, let's put this dude out of his misery.
I guess reported after the chicken died, the farmer like sold the body off to somebody, and
probably
they
to a
continued to
fucking
use it for an
carnivore.
act.
Yeah,
But that's crazy. It's like, check it out. Here's this dead headless chicken. It used to be alive without its head. Who pays to go see that?
What year was this?
1945 to 1947.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Do you think the other chickens bullied him?
I think that it was pointless because it's not like this chicken can feel it.
You're saying the bullying was pointless?
It was pointless, much like the chicken, because he doesn't have a head, so like he can't hear, he can't feel the emotion or the burn. So like they're like, haha, you don't have a head. Hey, Mike, you don't have a head. Mike, hey, Mike.
Oh,
you know what? I don't think he's
Mike. Oh, yeah.
The definition of ignore the bullies until they stop. There's no point.
Oh. Well, thank you for joining us during Spoopenheim. Gambit, you got any spoopin tunes?
I have some spoopin tunes. I actually have, I picked something very appropriate. It's Halloween time, and there's a band that I put on any time of the year when I'm missing that spooky Halloween feel. It's Type O Negative. Rest in peace, Peter Steele. Have you ever heard of Type O Negative?
No, I have not. They're
great. Peter Steele's like the lead singer, and he looks like a real-life Nathan Explosion from Metalocalypse. I remember this interview he did on Jerry Springer, where he was saying stuff like, women throw themselves at me at every show, and it's odd to me because this is my job. I'm not here to have a good time. And then Jerry Springer's like, well, do you ever take them up on their offer? And then Peter just waffles the question with like, I mean, I plead the fifth. I love
weird
Type O
fucking
Negative.
interview.
It's just the interview that I always remember.
This is my job. I'm not supposed to have fun here. Well, do you ever fuck them? I don't know. Maybe sometimes.
I mean, I'm not saying no.
No, I'm not saying yes.
Anyway, they're pretty doom metal / gothic metal, very appropriate for the season.
Dope.
The song I'm recommending is easily their biggest song ever, and people who know this band already know what the song is. It's Black Number One. He even says Happy Halloween like in the intro of the song.
Nice.
But while you're here, please check out their other songs because they're all winners in my book. Don't fucking lie to me. I know you need more spook metal in your life. Thank me later. Send muffins.
Send muffins. Not to be a bitch, but since you talked about Oingo Boingo, and I'm not going to suggest Dead Man's Party because you already quoted it, I'm going to do Only a Lad by Oingo Boingo because that's the band that I listen to feel spoopy throughout the year.
I think you're going to do Weird Science.
That's too easy. I like Only a Lad.
I mean, Dead Man's Party was too easy.
Yeah, Dead Man's Party is a little on the nose. Well,
for those who don't know Oingo Boingo, because I was prepared to explain this to Rachel, Oingo Boingo was Danny Elfman's band in the 80s. Danny Elfman, famous for doing the Tim Burton music in every Tim Burton movie ever.
Yes.
And it's fantastic.
Including Nightmare Before Christmas.
That's Danny Elfman. That's Danny Elfman,
that's
baby.
The one.
I think he voices Jack Skellington too in that, doesn't he?
He does his singing voice. He doesn't do his speaking voice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're two different people. Yeah, thank you guys for listening to Spoopenheim. We hope you enjoyed your spooky historical Spoopenheimer stories. I'm just gonna say Spoopenheim as much as I can between now and the end of the episode.
We're not
Spoopin for Spoopin, listening Spoopin. If Spoopin, you Spoopin, liked Spoopin, what Spoopin, you Spoopin, heard Spoopin.
You Spoopin can stay. You Spoopin must leave.
If you liked what you heard, or you just want me to shut the fuck up, like, subscribe, and comment on whatever your most favoriteest podcasting place is. If you want us to talk about a thing, you can email us at WHTPAH, that's whoopah, at gmail.com. You can also find us at WHTPAH on Blue Sky. Or on Instagram at We Have That Podcast at Home, where you can look at pictures of the Demon Core and a headless chicken right now.
Also, if you tweet out Spoopenheim to Mark Ruffalo, he will give you a promo code for a free Quiznos sandwich.
Yes. And it will have a tiny Hulk branded on top of the bun.
It won't. I don't know why it would do that. That's not Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo is an actor, okay? The Hulk is a character. I need you to separate these two things, your concepts.
No, they've become merged for me.
Much like the Hulk off screen.
Yes.
Well, because in the last movie, Hulk is integrated with Bruce Banner, and we don't know how or why it just happened. That was a funny joke to me. Fuck you.
You know, what's funny is I understood the joke the second you said it, but I wanted to see how long you struggled with it. All right.
Next week, we'll be tackling the fine art of...
Yes, I was getting there. I was laughing. Next week, we'll be tackling the illustrious and fine art of... comedy!
Oh, wow, comedy. What are we going to do for comedy? Bye.
Something. I've been branded Rachel.
Boo Radley.
Yes. I've been Boo Radley from your hit book that you had to read in high school, To Kill a Mockingbird.
And I've been Gammajigus Finch.
So good.
Yeah, that's a winner.
I loved every part of it. Reminded me of what the Headless Chicken's name should have been.
Thank you for listening to We Have That Podcast at Home.
Happy Spoopenheim.
Happy Halloween.